Organisations want to be, data driven. For me at the time, it was purely down to I could earn really, really good money. I was speaking with a tier one Indian vendor a couple of weeks ago. One of their metrics for next year is to get more.
Sam, what does your professional CV look like?
Good question, Ben. It's not a normal route into the recruitment world, so I've got a bit of a strange and interesting background. So believe it or not, after leaving school, I wanted to study agriculture. So I spent 2 years at a well-known agricultural college over in York to ultimately study agriculture. That 2 years finished, and then ultimately decided that agriculture wasn't really for me. There's not that much money in it unless you ultimately own the land and own the cattle. So I was in sort of two minds in terms of what to do next. An option was to move into the public sector. The police force, RAF, was an option. But ultimately, I took a first sales role. And that sales role, again, was not your traditional sales role. It was 100% commission-based, knocking on doors, selling electricity. So that was tough. It was hard. That lasted about 10, 11 months. It was a cold that got to me in the end. But ultimately, that gave me an ethos and work ethic into the world of sales. So moving from sales, I then moved into an L&D training development role for a Leeds-based collection agency. Spent a number of years with those guys. They went through an acquisition, and then ultimately decided what I wanted to do. I was sort of 25, 26 at the time. At the time, I had plenty of friends in recruitment. All of my appearance seemed to be doing relatively well in it. Nice suits, nice watches, nice cars, typical traditional what recruitment tells you. And then I had one interview with one agency, my first employer, iSource Group, and they offered me the role. It's quite funny because I didn't think I actually really wanted it. So when my previous director rang me to offer it, I didn't answer the phone. I didn't return the call for an actual week, believe it or not. And then thought, sod it, I need to bite the bullet and move in. So that was it. Yeah, moved to a Leeds-based agency called iSource Group as a trainee recruiter. Spent 7.5, 8 good years with that business, all the way up to director level. I had a few changes at the top then. Business going a slightly different direction, and then ultimately joined another Leeds-based organisation called Corcom Consulting just before COVID happened, which was a blessing in disguise because we were actually going to start the SPG journey back then, but everything happens for a reason. Massive believer in that, and it didn't. So I spent 18 months with Corcom. Loved John and Rick. Learned a hell of a lot from them. I was thinking, if I don't do this now, don't set up on my own and don't do something. Getting a little bit older, it's never going to happen. So yeah, the 1st of August 2021, we went live with SPG Resourcing.
So you could have really chosen any route in sales. Why people?
Why people? Do you know what? That's a very good question. And people are probably the most difficult sell ever. Because people aren't products. People like to change their mind. And ultimately, I get, people ask this question when I'm interviewing candidates for joining ourselves. Why do you want to join recruitment? What is it about, positioning people into new roles? And, 9 times out of 10, people say, oh, I want to, create opportunities for people. And for me at the time, it was purely down to I could earn really, really good money. And that was it. I'm not going to, brush anything over it at all. It's not about putting people, giving them dream roles. For me, it was all about earning cash.
Fair enough.
It's now slightly changed as obviously a business owner,
Yeah.
but back then it was all around the financial aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that's something that's common with recruitment is a lot of people just tend to fall into it.
Yeah.
And they kind of don't set out to be a recruiter and then just end up becoming one. So it sounds like a similar story for you as well.
Yeah, so I think all my half a dozen friends plus who are in this game have all done exactly the same. I don't think anybody leaves school, leaves college, leaves university saying I want to be a recruiter. Unless times have changed, and we do have that ambitious from joining straight out of university, but it's very, very few and far between. Because ultimately most degrees are not geared around recruitment, but around sort of business management. There's a slight sort of sales element to it, but it tends to be around sort of more business marketing. I mean, obviously more traditional degrees rather than what I call sort of traditional sales-based roles.
Being in the recruitment industry for a number of years now.
14.
14.
14.
Wow. What are you seeing right now in the market? Is there any trends that people should be looking out for?
Yeah, so like most markets, it's forever evolving, forever changing. There's good things, there's some not so good things, but specifically in our market, which is technology, there's a huge data push. So there's a significant increase in data opportunities within the market, along with anything within the sort of identity access management and cyber security space as well. There's a huge demand for that.
Why do you think that is? Is there any particular kind of cause for that?
On the data side, ultimately, organisations want to be, data driven. As a business owner, we want to make decisions based on evidence and based on data. So that's one element of it, and I think nowadays as well, organisations have realised, especially more sort of retail or consumer-led businesses, is they hold vast amounts of commercial data and ultimately utilising that now for commercial gain.
What is the most common people strategy you see on a daily basis?
People strategy depends who I speak to, but if we're working in relationship with a tier one bank or a tier one insurance house, depending on the type of opportunity that we're trying to fulfill, tends to be a blended approach. So most corporate large organisations will have some type of internal talent acquisition function, which they'll like to sort of try and utilise first, and then ultimately partner with organisations like ourselves to ultimately find that route of talent for them.
Does this work ultimately?
I think yes, it does to an extent, depending on skills. I think if you look at 2024, which is probably a good thing to look at, there's been mass redundancies across the technology market this year. Most mid to large to corporate sized businesses have made significant cutbacks, which ultimately means that there's lots of available talent on the market, which ultimately then helps and supports that internal talent function, bringing on talent directly. So that has helped the internal side. From an external perspective, obviously it causes some frustrations with organisations like ourselves, but we are ultimately there to support clients and partner with clients to basically, as I say, unearth those talents that aren't sort of easily identifiable. So if you think an internal recruiter might work on 15 to 20 vacancies at any one point in time, somebody like ourselves might work on per consultant sort of 1 to 2 vacancies at any one point in time. So we can do a lot more sort of digging around and unearthing those hate to use a term, hard to reach talent.
So explain to me a little bit then. Why would an organisation with an internal talent team use an external agency in addition to their own internal team?
Yeah. From an internal, I've never worked internal, so I might get shot down for this. But from an internal perspective, obviously they will use their brand, their websites, their LinkedIn pages, their socials to attract talent. That tends to be talent that's proactively looking for a new role. So if you were looking for a new role, Ben, you would basically put your resume out there on the job boards, which internal talent will get access to. You'll then set up, set up alerts for when jobs come up which might be relevant to you. You get them emailed, and you'll then apply. How we work as an organisation, and how many other agencies work, is we will proactively work what we call the passive talent market. So we will proactively speak to candidates that are looking for a new role, because at some point in their career, something will change in their current role, and they'll want to move. So all our team are proactively speaking to that passive talent. And I think, I've got a really, really good stat here. So last year, all our permanent placements, so it was 78% of all our permanent placements were all within that passive talent market. So
Wow.
individuals that weren't proactively looking for a new role. But it's like one of those, if somebody comes to you tomorrow and say, Ben, I've got the role of your life, it's going to double your salary, you can have that conversation, no matter who you are. So, and that's how we work. And ultimately, internal talent teams don't have they don't have the time to be able to operate like that.
So it's mainly that time saving, really. Do you think this is becoming the new norm with organisations?
It is. It's time saving, but also cost reduction as well. So, somebody somebody can come to ourselves, and realistically, within 48 hours, we should be able to provide them with a short list of 2 to 3 profiles that they want to interview through our passive talent network for any role across the tech space.
Are there any solutions that you're working on right now?
Lots. So as I mentioned before, we've invested quite heavily this year in new technologies, new CRM systems, new plugins. And we did that because ultimately we want to be a data-driven businesses, making decisions based on data available to us. Because again, we are a sales-based organisation. We have KPIs, we have metrics, we have OKRs, and ultimately it's holding the salespeople to account on there. So making those decisions based on the data available to us is absolutely key. And then the other sort of a solution we're ultimately working on as well to help grow our recruitment and technology function is all around sort of our brand proposition and solution. So what do we look like to the outside world from a technology business?
So if we're looking at data in particular, then what's your approach with that?
So good question. So for me, might be a bit old school, but if it's not logged in a CRM system, it doesn't count. So every single tangible action outcome needs to be logged, because we can actually drill really, really deep into data, pull off trends, pull off reports, and have some really, really detailed analysis into what every individual salesperson actually doing, which again, we can use that based on performance, but for me, it's more around, before we get to that stage, it's identifying training needs for that individual as well. So again, in most businesses, you'll get, 1 or 2 people are really, really good at one part of the role, but really, really needs to focus on another part to make them, more fuller, rounded. So yeah, I mean, that's it. If it's not in a system, it doesn't count. And ultimately, we use that data then to support, help, and sort of develop those individuals internally.
So 5 key metrics that you'd look for on a weekly, monthly basis to assist that people strategy. What are they?
On a people strategy perspective, so For me, it's all around. So if you think of a sales cycle, you need to ultimately put enough sales stuff in the top of the funnel for that to be able to come through and ultimately close as a sale, as a deal. So key thing for me is who we're speaking to, how many meetings are we proactively having, how many new meetings are we proactively having. Meetings. What else am I holding my guys to account on? Meetings. Identifying opportunities. So in terms of how we segment ours, it's quite straightforward. It's leads, it's engaged opportunity, and then qualified opportunities. And then what we can then do is put some weighted ratios around what that potential deal value will be. From a recruitment perspective, not so much on the consulting side, I think nowadays a lot of individuals, a lot of recruiters coming through into the industry don't stick to the basics. It's all around, for me, it's all about feeding a pipeline. If you've got enough opportunities coming into that pipeline, you'll then close something. So it's all around outbound activities.
So let's say you were going into an organisation. What are the most important things that you kind of take into account? If you had, let's say, 6 months to improve their metrics, what are you looking at straight away?
Is this going into from a client, going into a client, or is this for our business internally?
Going into a client.
Right. So if I was going to go into a client, I'd ultimately want to understand is what's working right. So there's lots of good internal talent, lots of good HR teams that are really, really good at the role, and good at finding new talent into that business. So really understand, what's working. Understand, it's quite basic. Understand not what isn't quite working, what the challenges around that, why that is. Again, a lot of the time could be that internal stakeholder management, hiring managers might not be bought into recruitment framework, into the internal SLAs. They see it as sometimes, not saying everything, but they see it as a bit of a burden. I need to hire, or I need to start booking some time out for interviews and so they see it as burden because they're taking that away from their sort of the day-to-day job, bearing in mind we're working with technologists and techies. So understanding what works, what doesn't work, what the challenges are, understand what the pain points are, but ultimately coming up with a solution in terms of where we might be able to support and fix that. Some clients might have a challenge around sort of diversity within the organisation. Some clients might want to go, and I was speaking with a tier one Indian vendor a couple of weeks ago. One of their metrics for next year is to get more white male and female people into the organisation, where you speak to UK-based businesses, it tends to be the way around. So it can work hand in hand. So it's understanding what goes right, what's not working right, come up with a solution, and then understand the sort of people ethics around it as well.
Moving on to solutions, I know you do offer a solution called Architecture as a Service. Can you just explain that to me and what that is?
I can. Yeah, I'll keep it in simple terms. So, Architecture as a Service is a service we offer where we will support organisations with twofolds, really, depending on who they are, what they want, and how mature they are as an organisation. So it could be something as simple as using our internal architecture team to support them with architecture resource, so resource augmentation, where that's been pretty successful for us over the last couple of years. Or it could be completely the other end of a scale, where a client will come to us, they're just about to engage on a large transformation program, and they don't have any architecture capability whatsoever. So no governance, no frameworks in place. So we will effectively go in and create that function for them. We will utilise our internal architecture teams, as well as then supporting with some of our external associate architecture network as well. I mean, it also might get to a point where, again, with a national housing association, we've done quite a lot of work with. We've then ultimately hired them a chief architect, supported them bringing that chief architect on board. Then helping that chief architect build out a solutions architecture team, and then over time we would phase off that program. So I think, yeah, all in all, that was sort of a almost a 2-year piece of work with those.
Final question for you, Sam, before I let you go.
Go on.
What is your message to anyone struggling to find a solution? If they are really struggling to kind of understand, develop a solution to solve a problem within their organisation?
Call me. Call SPG. No. So yeah, no, that is actually the first thing. But for me, there's lots of good recruitment agencies out there, really good ones, including ourselves. So speak to people, speak to multiple of people as well. So again, I always say this to any candidates that proactively reach out to me. So I'm good, but I'm not, I cannot fulfill the world. So always speak to sort of 2 or 3 people, understand what each of those solutions have got to offer, and then understand if that's going to work for you or not. But yeah, always get 2 or 3 opinions as a minimum. But in first case, speak to SPG.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you for that. I think it's really good to understand what different recruitment agencies are doing to kind of adapt with times. But yeah, thank you for taking the time today.